Hello everyone, my name is Ben Crawley and I'm a Research and Development Officer within Department of Primary Industries at Narrabri. And today I'm going to give you a presentation on the cotton water productivity benchmarking project, and in particular go through the 17-18 season results. And this is one of 4 presentations on the benchmarking project that was given at the Association of Australian Cotton Scientists Conference in Armidale in 2019. And this project is made possible thanks to the funding from the CRDC. So just to give a bit of an introduction to the project's called DAN 1505, and it's been going for 5 years. However, the activity of benchmarking water productivity has been going over 12 years by the DPI. And in this presentation, I'm going to show you how we quantified the gross productive water use index, or the GPWI, or the water productivity for the 17-18 season, and I'll confirm a continuous improvement in water productivity in the cotton industry, which is a good story. So a bit of a background. So what's benchmarking? It's measuring and comparing performance against the standard, and that performance we're measuring is the gross productive water use index, as I mentioned in the previous slide. It's also known as water productivity. So a grower might compare their individual result against the average of their valley or the average of the industry. We might compare the average for this season to previous seasons we've benchmarked. So why do we do it? Well, we want to facilitate continuous improvement within the industry. So we want to try and identify what the better performing growers are doing, and we'll try and identify what's holding some other growers back, or they're not identify what's holding growers back from achieving the higher water productivity values. And the way we do it is through surveys and historical analysis. So for the 17-18 season, that's the 4th time we've done a survey. And so we fill in those survey gaps with the historical analysis, which my colleague David Perovich will go through. And what we do with the survey is we send it out to the growers through mail or email or fax. We collect a whole bunch of data off them. We then run it through software called WaterTrack, and then that gives us a water productivity value and a breakdown of where their water's going and inefficiencies or efficiencies. So for the 17-18 survey, we had 45 growers or agronomists, which made up 57 farms, some doubled up. This consisted of 240 fields, which made up nearly 19,000 hectares and 230,000 bales of cotton. And this was approximately 8% of the industry. So we got a pretty good coverage. And so here's a map of where our growers are located. And so up there in the north in the red is central Queensland, so growers around Emerald. And down here in the south in the white is the Murrumbidgee growers. We've got the Macquarie growers there, the upper Namoi in the blue, the lower Namoi in the yellow, the Guida, the Border Rivers. Had a grower over at St George, one in Gundy, and then the Darling Downs there in the orange. So pretty widespread coverage. So with the data we get back from the grower, we also want to have a breakdown of the water balances occurring on farm. And so we will have a starting volume in the dam, or sometimes it's 0. In this case, pretend we've got a volume. We also have a starting soil moisture deficit or content. And then we have water metered on from the dam, from the river or creek. We then get a bit of rainfall. We want to measure how much of that we captured and put back into the dam. And we also want to quantify how much of that rainfall was effective rainfall. And that's a function of the soil moisture content. So for example, if we had a 100 mil rainfall event yesterday, or an irrigation yesterday, and then we got a smaller 10 mil rainfall event today, there's a good chance most of that will run off because the soil moisture profile is filled from the previous day's irrigation or big rainfall event. Likewise, if we had a dry spell and we had a high permeability, such as a sandy clay loam, and then say we got a 10 mil rain event, there's a good chance the majority of that 10 mil will infiltrate into the soil moisture. Then we also get rainfall directly onto the dam. We call that incident rainfall. So these are the water inputs. Then we want to try and look at where the water's going. So obviously we have an irrigation on the field. We get a bit of sunlight, hopefully, and then the crop grows. Then water will be lost through evapotranspiration from the crop, and also through evaporation and deep drainage from the field, the channels, drains, and also the dam. And so this will go on throughout the season, and the water level will drop in the dam as this continues on. And then towards the end of the season, we're left with an end storage volume and end soil moisture content, or soil moisture deficit. So to explain that in a bit of a more simple way, let's say our water inputs were 1,000 megs. We know that 1,000 megs came onto the farm as rainfall, licensed water, etc. And then at the end of the season, we had 100 megalitres left over in the storage or in the soil as soil moisture deficit or as content. So we know we started with 1,000 megs. At the end of the season, we had 100 megs. So we know that 900 megs has gone in to grow the crop. And we call this the total available water. And so the yield that we get off the grower divided by the total available water is our GPWI, our gross productive water index, or our water productivity. Sorry, and as you can see there, it's a function of yield and a total available water. So the drivers of yield, your pest, disease, nutrition management, you now have these high yielding varieties. And the drivers of total available water will be how efficient you are with your water. So let's say this grower lines their channel with concrete next season. They're going to have less losses through deep drainage. Let's say that they now have 150 megs left over at the end of the season, so say 50 megs. But then we know that 850 megs has now grown to grow the crop, not 900 megs. So if the yield divided by 850, small number, the GPWI is going to be higher. It's probably worth saying that a high yield doesn't always mean a high GPWI. Sometimes there'll be times when there was a lot of water required to achieve that yield. And obviously then a low yield doesn't always mean a low GPWI. And we're also interested in the outputs. So where all that water is going throughout the year, that total available water, we want to break it down to see where the efficiencies are or inefficiencies. And so we're interested in the storage channel and drain evaporation and seepage, the crop evapotranspirations, how much the crop uses, and field evaporation and deep drainage during irrigations, and any operational losses such as a channel blowout, but they were pretty rare. So firstly, our water outputs through dam, channel and drain losses. So to calculate that, we get the surface area and the wet periods, and we also get we multiply that by the evaporation data from silo, and we also multiply that by the seepage rate. And we get the seepage from the grower if they know it, from a dam survey, or we can estimate that from the soil type. And so when you're multiplying a length by an area, we get a volume, so that gives us the volume loss. And sometimes the grower doesn't know the surface area and the wet period. We can get that from satellites. So we use Irrigation for this. Irrigation wasn't designed for this, but it's something we picked up we can do. And up here in the north here, we have a dam. It's got a white ring around it. That white is the water. So that's the NDVI. And so that ring represents the low point, or maybe it might be a dead storage of the dam. That's only a small area evaporating. But down south here, we have a full dam represented by the white and the grey. And so we can calculate this area and then multiply it by evaporation data. And the satellite allows us to do this on a week-by-week time frame. So also interested to know how much water was used by the crop through evapotranspiration. And to do this, we need the growth factors, or the crop KC values. And we get those from Irrisat or from published data values. And so here's an example. We have a few fields traced out. They're in blue there. So their KC value on the scale over here in the top right-hand corner is up around 1. It's the middle of January, so this thing's firing away. And then up here in the north, we have a bit of native vegetation. It's not growing so much. So it's up around the yellow, orangey values. And so finally, we're after how much water was lost during the irrigation through evaporation and deep drainage off the field. We call this the field application loss, and it's a leftover. We call this leftover water. And so it's calculated by subtracting the crop water requirement and the losses from the storage channel and drains from the total available water. And so other measurements we're also interested in is the whole farm irrigation efficiency, or I like to call it WIFI. That's the crop water use less the effective rain, soil moisture, divided by the irrigation water use on farm, multiplied by 100. And it's a measure of how efficiently water is used on the farm. So a higher WIFI indicates storage, transmission, and field losses are pretty low, and most of the water's getting to the crop. But they are influenced by rainfall and are generally higher in dry years as a greater proportion of the crop water needs are met by irrigation. So when you compare WIFI, you need to take rainfall into consideration for that season. And so our results for the 2017 and 18 season, we have for water productivity and WIFI, presented on this graph here. So in the bar graph is our water productivity, and for the 17-18 results, it was up around the 1.2 barrels per megalitre mark. As you can see, that's an improvement of the previous seasons when we surveyed, when we benchmarked through surveys, and the WIFI is up around 80%. So this is a good result for the cotton industry. It shows that water productivity is continuing to increase, which is a good story to tell, and also a very important one. And so this is our interactive dashboard, which we send back to the growers so they can check their individual results against the average of their valley or the average of the industry. And this is one of our best performing growers. They performed quite well. They got 1.65 barrels per megalitre, so well above the average of 1.2. In the top left-hand corner here, we have a bar graph which breaks down all the KPIs. So we've got water productivity, yield, green area, etc. And this blue zone here is the top 25%. And so this grower here for water productivity was quite far into the top 25 percentile. Interestingly enough, though, the yield is quite low. So you don't need a high yield to achieve a higher water productivity. As you can see down here, the total water input was quite low too. But as you can see, the whole farm irrigation efficiency was quite high. So this grower was quite efficient with their water, and they got the most out of their rain. Effective rainfall was high. And storage losses were about moderate. And this these pie charts over here break down the water balance to display the inefficiencies or the efficiencies of water use. And so you can see this grower here had 88% of their water was taken up by the crop, and only 12% was lost. And so 10% of that was lost through storage, evaporation, and deep drainage, 1% through conveyance in the channels and the dams, channels and the drains, and then a 1% field application losses, so evaporation and deep drainage during irrigation. And here's a breakdown of the pie charts for the top 25% of growers, the middle 50%, and the bottom 25%. And down here in the bottom left, we have a gauge chart or a needle chart. And again, there's a 1.65 water barrels per megalitre water productivity, so quite far across. And if I'll change that to yield, you can see they didn't have the greatest yield. And again, change that to total available water, quite low, quite low. Yeah, go back. And so this bottom right-hand corner is just a line graph ranking all the growers, and this grower here was right near the top. So performed quite well, didn't get the highest yield, but also didn't use much water to achieve that yield. So wrapping up, the future of the project, we have another 3 years of funding thanks to CRDC, and the project will be named DAN 2002, and it'll be called Trends and Drivers of Water Productivity of Irrigated and Dryland Cotton. So we'll start getting into the dryland or rain-fed, some people like to call it, cotton space. And we'll aim to try and streamline it, make it more efficient, and make it an annual process. So far, we've only done the surveys over 4 seasons, so we're going to try and improve on that, do it every year. We'll also look at more supplementary data sets to make our analysis more solid, and try and create greater grower participation engagement. Also, we want to improve on the accuracy of our KC, our growth values, and really identify what is driving higher water productivity or what's holding growers back from achieving higher water productivity values. So there's a couple of people I'd like to acknowledge and thank. Firstly, the Cotton Info REOs for all their help in helping us get the grower participation numbers up. And also like to thank Janelle Montgomery, who used to work on this project. Without her help and without her guidance, there's no way we could have got to where we are today. Also like to thank Jim Purcell, who provides the WaterTrack software. Jim was very kind in always helping us with any questions or queries we might have had with the software. And if you'd like more information, we can go to that link there, or just Google benchmarking water productivity prime fact, and you'll have all information, a whole heap of information on the project and the results. Or you can just email me directly at ben.crawley@dpi.nsw.gov.au. Thank you for listening to this presentation.